A federal appeals court has ruled Donald Trump does not have broad immunity from prosecution for the actions he took while he was president. And oh boy, let it rain. I really don't think so. I don't think any Republican is going to go after Joe Biden or Barack Obama, or for that matter, any of the other presidents. I mean, you got Bill Clinton, you got George W. Bush, but let's just start with my lifetime and what I am familiar with. Barack Obama murdered more than one American citizen without charge or trial. Now, of course, we can sit here and talk about how Barack Obama ordered a drone strike on a civilian target in a country we are not at war with, Yemen, killing a 16-year-old American citizen who was accused of no crime, Abdulrahman al-Awlaki. And of course, many people try to argue, but Tim, it was an accident. The Obama administration. Biden was there. But the Obama administration wasn't trying to kill an American citizen, so it's not his fault. Fair point. So I guess we'll just charge him with manslaughter? Oh, hold on there a minute. Anwar al-Awlaki, his dad. Yeah, now this one's a little bit more interesting, but still stands. Anwar al-Awlaki was accused of being an al-Qaeda operative. Well, that's really bad, isn't it? So Barack Obama personally ordered the execution of an American citizen. You see, in this country, the president doesn't just get to decide to kill you without due process. But unfortunately for this man, and I don't know, maybe he was a really bad guy. That's fine. But we put people on trial in this country. You arrest them. You stop them. There's a fair point, I will concede, that when it comes to war operations, if you've got a guy who's actively engaging in militaristic style attacks against you, okay, well, you defend yourself. But that being said, there still should be an inquiry, an investigation. There should be committee hearings asking the question, could this man have been apprehended and brought to justice? Because it is imperative, in my opinion, that we put people who commit crimes like this on trial to prove it, to show the world, to show the people of this country. Well, now they've said Trump does not have immunity. Of course, this will likely move up to the Supreme Court, where I got to imagine they're going to say he does. But in the meantime, my friends, I ask simply this. I don't know, Ken Paxton? Who do we got in West Virginia? I don't know how West Virginia operates, but I'd imagine the AG oversees all this. So could any single Republican pursue a criminal inquiry into Biden or Obama for the love of all that is holy? Here's the story from NPR. You know, we love using our lefty sources. A 3-judge panel of the U.S. Court of Appeals for the D.C. Circuit has ruled that Donald Trump does not enjoy broad immunity from federal prosecution, a major legal setback for the former president who said he will appeal. They wrote that for the purposes of this criminal case, former President Trump has become Citizen Trump, with all the defenses of any other criminal defendant. The ruling comes a month after lawyers for Trump made sweeping claims that he enjoyed immunity from federal prosecution, claims that lawyers for the special counsel said would undermine democracy, and give presidents license to commit crimes while in the White House, such as accepting bribes for directing government contracts or selling nuclear secrets to a foreign adversary. In fact, those claims are true. Why? There has to be a standard. You can't simply say some things are exempt and other things are not. Barack Obama murdered more than one American citizen, in which case I don't see a difference between bribes and murder. They're both crimes. But if you want to make the argument that under the color of military application, Barack Obama made these calls, therefore he can't be prosecuted, the same stands for literally any charge, because you need due process. By all means, you can accuse someone of taking a bribe. Prove it. Right now, the question is, did Barack Obama murder American citizens? The answer, of course, is yes. And for that, should he be criminally charged? You know, I got to be completely honest. I believe there should be an impeachment inquiry into Barack Obama. I believe there should be an impeachment brought due to the circumstances which we know very much about. And should he be actually impeached and held accountable by Congress, then yes, criminal charges. But I actually would agree. I've spoken with many people about the killing of Anwar and Abdulrahman al-Awlaki. I believe the intention of the U.S. was to murder his son intentionally to send a message to other terrorist organizations or enemies of the U.S. We will murder your family. I think it's horrifying. I don't believe it's an accident. But it's not for me to lock someone up or strip them of their authority or power or whatever. It is for the process to function. And some people have argued when it comes to Anwar al-Awlaki, who was an active enemy combatant of the United States, do you really expect that, like, if there's a Benedict Arnold or a traitor, that we're going to be like, no, that one guy over there on the enemy lines, we can't hurt because he's American? Oh, no, you're at war with us. You're at war with us. And if you die, it's your fault. I understand that argument. I do. I don't think this has been properly adjudicated. However, in which case there should be, in my opinion, criminal charges brought up not for Anwar al-Awlaki, despite the fact that I do believe American citizens should not be killed in this way. I understand that argument. But Abdulrahman, his son, at least for manslaughter or criminally negligent homicide. But we'll get into that because this one really grinds my gears. They say it would be a striking paradox, the judges wrote, if the president, who alone has the constitutional duty to ensure that laws be faithfully executed, were the sole officer capable of defying those laws with impunity. In fact, that has to be the case. Absolutely amazing. That's what the process of impeachment is for. I'll keep just throwing it back to Anwar al-Awlaki, but let's read. Stephen Chung, a spokesman for Trump, said the former president respectfully disagrees with the D.C. Circuit's decision and will appeal it in order to safeguard the presidency and the Constitution. If immunity is not granted to a president, every future president who leaves office will be immediately indicted by the opposing party. Without complete immunity, a president of the United States would not be able to properly function. The special counsel's team declined to comment. I mean, I got to be honest. I would absolutely love to accept the ruling here. Fine. By all means, let's roll. The only problem is Republicans don't have the balls to actually go up against the machine. In fact, most of them are part of it. The court said Tuesday that its analysis was specific to the case in front of them. One of the D.C. Circuit judges, Florence Pan, pressed Trump attorney D. John Sauer with the oral argument about whether a president might sell pardons or nuclear secrets or even order a Navy SEAL team to kill a political opponent and still evade criminal prosecution under his theory of the case. Another, Judge Karen L. Henderson, noted that it seemed paradoxical that presidents would pledge to faithfully execute the laws only to violate those same laws and receive legal protection. Quote, we cannot accept that the office of the presidency places its former occupants above the law for all time thereafter. Doing so, they said, would collapse our system of separated powers by placing the president beyond the reach of all three branches. Incorrect. These people are crackpots and they're insane. Is this a joke? Quite literally, the impeachment process is through Congress to check the power of the executive branch. What we don't want is the state or federal law enforcement of the next executive administration to target the previous administration due to political differences. It should be the legislative branch through the impeachment process that opens the door to target a president, determining whether or not what they did was a high crime or misdemeanor. Trump has pleaded not guilty to 4 felony counts that accuse him of leading a conspiracy to cling to power and disenfranchise millions of voters in 2020. Prosecutors say that this culminated in violence at the Capitol, etc. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. It, in fact, is the duty of Donald Trump to have pursued all means to retain his seat. And the terrifying thing here is that they're criminally charging a president for his constitutional duty, hence the argument of immunity. Okay, you want to make the argument, let's make the argument. You argue that Donald Trump lost, he should have accepted his defeat, and that's the end of it. If Hillary Clinton believed that Donald Trump had won because of Russia, should she have said, no, it's fine? It's absolutely fine that Russia installed a dictatorial president. No, Hillary Clinton tried, and many of them did, to pursue let's just say they went extra legal with it. But my point is this. In the event that a foreign adversary subverts an election process and the president then pursues some kind of reconciliation, adjudication to figure out what's going on here, as he should, the argument from the left is this president should go to prison for trying to do it. No. The Constitution requires a legitimate process. As the president, he pursued all methods and means to explore and investigate the results of an election. That is his duty. Why? Many states, state legislatures, and many lawyers and activists and lawsuits had emerged saying something's not right. Well, the president should pursue that. And guess what? He lost the fight. That's it. We move on. To pursue him criminally after the fact would imply that any president who is anyone, even if he's not even running for re-election, should he dare to try and figure out if there was some criminal activity in an election, he would go to prison for it. That's absurd. Tuesday's decision comes at a crucial time for Trump. It's a blah, blah, blah. We get it. We get it. All right. Let's play the game, ladies and gentlemen, because I am so on board for this. The killing of Abdulrahman al-Awlaki. Okay. 16-year-old U.S. citizen who was killed by a drone strike under a policy approved by Barack Obama. His father, Anwar al-Awlaki, was also alleged to be an operational leader of al-Qaeda. He was killed by a CIA drone strike, also ordered by Obama 2 weeks prior. Alleged. Obama killed an American citizen on an allegation. For this, I believe there should be a criminal investigation. You know, you come across a man and he's holding a knife, standing over a dead body. We say, okay, drop the weapon. You are under arrest on suspicion of murder. Why? Because we saw you standing over a dead body. Okay. Then we have an investigation because on the surface, it looks pretty bad. What do we find? In fact, there is a security camera and it shows this man who was holding the knife walking up and seeing a dead body on the ground with a knife next to it and blood everywhere. Panic, call for help, grab the knife. For whatever reason, he's stupid. He picks the knife up, then realizes what it is, and then the police show up. Now, it looks like he may have murdered the guy, but then it turns out he was a bystander. How about this? The guy walks up with a surveillance footage, and it shows the man walk up, and there's a crazy guy waving a knife, screaming around, and then they get into a fight. The guy defends himself. The other guy dies, and then they come and they arrest him, and it turns out there was a legitimate reason as to why there was lethal force used. The man was defending himself. In this instance, I think it's absolutely fine to say there should be an investigation as to why Barack Obama murdered this American citizen without charge or trial and figure out if it was some kind of security issue for the United States or was Barack Obama just committing a murder. It is remarkable to me that an American citizen was murdered and all Obama had to say was, he was an enemy. Is this a joke? Do we really live in this world? Okay, fine. I am fine with an impeachment inquiry into the actions taken by Barack Obama to determine whether or not he killed someone wrongly. If the impeachment inquiry turns up that he did, and he's impeached for it and convicted of the murder, then he should face criminal charges. But right now, understand the simplicity of the circumstance we are in. Many would argue that it was Obama's sworn duty under the Constitution to defend this country from an enemy, foreign or domestic. And in this instance, Anwar al-Awlaki is accused of being an operational leader of al-Qaeda at war with the United States. I think it's laughably absurd to criminally charge a president for defending this country from an enemy attacker. That being said, as an American citizen, we should get an inquiry into this. There should be a heavy investigation, and there should be a report released as to why an American citizen was killed in this way. Instead, we have nothing. And the bigger question, of course, is beyond murder. What about negligent homicide or manslaughter? Why was Abdulrahman killed? 16-year-old American citizen. Was he born Boulder, Colorado, Denver? He was born in Denver. He lived in San Diego. Human rights groups questioned why al-Awlaki was killed by U.S. in a country we were not at war with. Jamil Jaffer, deputy legal director of the ACLU, said, if the government is going to be firing Predator missiles at American citizens, surely the American public has a right to know who's being targeted and why. 2 U.S. officials, speaking on the condition of anonymity, stated their target was Ibrahim al-Bana, an Egyptian believed to be a senior operative in al-Qaeda. Another U.S. administration official, speaking on the condition of anonymity, described Abdulrahman al-Awlaki as a bystander who was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I don't buy it. I really don't. When pressed by a reporter to defend the targeted killing policy that resulted in al-Awlaki's death, former White House Press Secretary Robert Gibbs deflected blame to the victor's father, saying, I would suggest that you have a far more responsible father if they're truly concerned about the well-being of their children. I don't think becoming an al-Qaeda jihadist terrorist is the best way to go about doing your business. And for this, Abdulrahman al-Awlaki is dead. Okay. We're going to play that game. Let's play that game. Trump has no immunity. I was waiting for this moment. Ken Paxton, Texas. You going to file criminal charges against Barack Obama? And I don't know that the AG actually does that personally. But will you instruct your administration and your prosecutors and the state to pursue criminal charges? He's an American citizen. Okay. Perhaps the argument is, what jurisdiction do we have? He was from Denver, Colorado. He lived in San Diego. So perhaps the argument's going to be, we don't have the jurisdiction to pursue a murder charge for someone who didn't live here. I am sure outside of this, actually, let's pull up Anwar. Anwar al-Awlaki, born in 1971, an American Islamic scholar and lecturer who was killed in 2011 in Yemen by a U.S. drone strike ordered by Obama. In Yemen? We're not at war with Yemen. We've not been at war with Yemen. Why is this happening? Interesting. So he was born in Las Cruces, New Mexico. But I have to wonder, did this man ever live in any other jurisdiction? Let's see. Let's go through this. Colorado State makes sense. That's where his son was. He married a cousin. Yikes. And, and then he was in San Diego, which makes sense. It's where his son was. Northern Virginia. He attended a mosque in Northern Virginia. There you go. Do we have anybody in Virginia who will pursue these charges? I'm willing to bet that Anwar al-Awlaki, Abdul Rahman, had some connections granting jurisdiction to someone. Furthermore, are we going to see the ACLU or any other NGO take action now and call for criminal charges? How about this? An American citizen was killed overseas by a president. Will Merrick Garland instruct his Department of Justice to begin the criminal proceedings against Barack Obama? Of course he won't. But I tell you this. Should Donald Trump win and become president, I hope, I do, that the new AG who steps in pursues criminal charges against Barack Obama for more than just this. Because that's the game they want to play, then so be it. It is the game we shall. But let's be real. While they use this window to go up against Trump and try and put him in prison so he can't win in November, the Supreme Court is likely going to reject all of this. They're going to say no. In fact, already I've seen some lawyers on X, aka Twitter, say that the way this was drafted up, these judges are basically begging, please, we're such cowards. Someone take this off our hands. The argument, of course, is that they do not want to be the name behind destabilization or this political issue. You know, judges are fairly cowards. Tend to be, many of them, not all of them. There's probably a lot of judges who are pretty brave. But boy, oh boy, do we see more and more just how cowardly so many judges are. The Supreme Court justices themselves are mostly cowards, absolute cowards. I have to be completely honest. You take a look at Texas v. Pennsylvania in 2020. Texas wanted an answer. If one of the states involved in our presidential election can unilaterally and in violation of the Constitution change their rules, does that mean we have a free and fair election? Texas was upset. Pennsylvania changed the rules of their election outside of the confines of the Constitution and said, if they're cheating, why should their vote count? Now, the view of the Democrats was, it doesn't matter how they came to their vote, they voted. But Texas says, if they can cheat and subvert the will of the voters there, how are we involved in a fair election when executives are putting up fake votes? The Supreme Court said no, because they're cowards. That's the reality of it. It was Alito and Thomas who said under original jurisdiction, meaning the states, when they file suit against another state, Supreme Court handles it, said we must hear this case. And they didn't even say that they were going to rule on the merits. They literally said we should take this up. The rest of the justices just said no. There's a really obvious reason why. I believe that upon review, the conclusion of any honest justice would be, we do not have a legitimate election if a state is in violation of the Constitution. We all agree to the rules. We all proceed in this way. And then we say, okay, Texas will be beholden to a president we don't like because we played fair. But if there's a state or states that are not playing by the rules of the Constitution, i.e., you cannot change your elections unilaterally through an executive or a judicial review. It has to be through the legislature. Then it's unfair. It's unfair that Texas would play by the rules. Look at it this way. Texas says, we're going to run an election. And if the Democrats win, they win. If the Republicans win, they win. Pennsylvania says, we're going to change the rules. And this is going to swing things in favor of Democrats. Well, hold on. The states aren't supposed to be playing political party favorites. But they did. And so Texas wanted an answer on it. And the Supreme Court said, we're not going to give you one, leading to the crisis we are facing today. They could have given us a simple answer, and this could have been resolved 4 years ago. Well, 3 years ago, but you get the point. They could have said simply, Pennsylvania, you guys changed they'd hear the arguments. Texas would say, it was a judge who altered the rules. That's not how this is supposed to be run. And if we're playing fair, but they're weighted in favor of a party, it nullifies our votes. And it nullifies the votes of the people in that state. Supreme Court justice would have had to have said, you're right. Constitution says the legislature will have ultimate decision-making power on this one. There were concerns that the Constitution forbade universal mail-in voting in Pennsylvania, but they decided to allow it anyway. If the election was held in violation of the state constitution, they're breaking the rules. And instead of changing it through the required legislative process, don't get me wrong, the legislature approved universal mail-in voting in violation of the Constitution. Instead of doing it, they all just banged the gavel and said, no, we're going to do it anyway. Supreme Court justices were too much of cowards to do anything about it. But we'll see. This question will fall into the lap of the Supreme Court, and I believe it's fairly obvious they will rule Trump does have immunity. However, it's entirely possible they rule he does not have immunity, in which case Trump's probably going to go to prison. But we'll see. I'll leave it there. Next segment is coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.